Namaskaram, and a very good morning here in DFW. For, on, and behalf of IFA, this is Sai Harini Ramakrishnan, welcoming you all to IFA's Virtual Vibes. This is one of IFA's signature programs with a global audience. And today, we are excited to bring Exploring Abhinaya in Classical Dance Forms with a talented team of panelists, Aditya Iswara, Megna Murali, and Shilpa Sethuraman. Being proficient in Bharatanatyam, Kuchipudi, and Kathak, we are sure to get a very interesting and insightful look at the various vibrant shades of Abhinaya. Let's make the session interactive, so please post your questions live on Facebook and on YouTube, as the multi-talented panelists would love to have a lively discussion with all of you. Heartfelt thanks to all our audiences and patrons. We also request all of you to subscribe to our IFA's YouTube channel and also like us on Facebook. Without any further delay, over to the young talented panelists for exploring Abhinaya in classical dance forms.
Namaskar and welcome. And we're so excited to be here to share our experiences and our different perspectives in Abhinaya. My name is Megna Murali, and I started learning Bharatanatyam at a very young age from Srimati Radhika Ganesh. And I would like to thank all my gurus over the years, Radhika Ganesh, Shobna Balachandra, and Rama Vaidyanathan. And I also started learning Kathak after my Arangetram from Murali Mohan Kalwa Kalwa and Tushar Bhatt.
Namaskar, everyone. My name is Aditya Iswara. I have been learning Bharatanatyam since I was very young from my mother, Srimati Vani Iswara, who was a disciple of Professor C.V. Chandrasekhar. Outside of dance, I've also been trained in Indian classical music and percussion, including the Mridangam and Kanjira from Sri Puvalur Sriji. And today I will be discussing how musical choices impact the Abhinaya that we show as dancers, and how Abhinaya is influenced by the male versus the female perspective.
Namaskaram, my name is Shilpa Sethuraman, and I have been learning Bharatanatyam from my mother as well, Mother Shri Sethuraman, and have also been learning Kuchipudi from Padma Sonti, both in Dallas. I wanted to say a huge thank you to IFA for giving us this opportunity. I think we've all gotten to learn a lot from one another and hope to share some of that with you as well. So I will be discussing really the focus on Hindu mythology and just the power of storytelling. What I was really inspired by is my grandma growing up told me lots of Hindu mythological stories, and I think just seeing them passed down generation over generation and the power that they can have is just incredibly beautiful. So I'd like to bring a little bit of that to the Abhinaya pieces that I share today. So you'll hear all of us have a few different experiences and different ways of even approaching Abhinaya, but what we wanted to share is just the underlying universal human emotion that we all want to make sure that we are communicating. And so we kind of use the Navarasa or the 9 emotions as the thread. You won't necessarily see all of them, but we'll definitely show portions of them throughout our dances, and would love to just show how we try to show our own take of those emotions. So I will start out by sharing a piece called Jaya Jaya Durge, which is a Kuchipudi Tarangam, which is typically the main dance in a Kuchipudi recital. So it's about 20 to 25 minutes or so, and also includes the plate dance. But today I'll only be showing a small excerpt that's really focused on the fight between Goddess Durga and the demon Mahishasura. What's really powerful here is that there are a few different emotions you'll see. You'll see the Raudram or anger as Durga is fighting this demon. You'll also see her Vira or valor and just the strength that she brings. And what I'm hoping I can also communicate is really how using different body language and emotions can actually communicate the Abhinaya as well. And so this is more of a Nritta piece. Later, you'll be seeing some really kind of truly Abhinaya focused pieces. But here you'll see that Durga, she's very powerful, but still showing a little bit of that effeminate side. And then you'll also see Mahishasura, who's this haughty demon. And so trying to communicate those different emotions throughout the piece. So this piece is composed by Narayana Tirtha. It's in Ragam Shanmugapriya and Talam Adi, and it was taught to me by Padma Aunty for my Rangapravesham. So I will share this back.
Jaya Jaya Durge, Jitavairi Varge, Jaya Jaya Durge, Jitavairi Varge.
That was wonderful. That was wonderful. So just like seeing a different dance form, I personally don't have a lot of experience with other classical dance forms other than Bharatanatyam. And so Meghna, I know you do Kathak. I would love to hear if you've sort of noticed any differences between Abhinaya and Bharatanatyam and Kathak.
Yeah, I think that's a great topic to discuss because there are a lot of differences. I think they're very subtle and small nuances are, in between our dance styles. And I think in Kathak, we try to really show as naturally as possible how we would generally feel during these situations, how a normal person would do it rather than like as a dance presentation of an emotion. It's a very subtle way of showing it. Well, I think Bharatanatyam has also gone through a change over the past couple of years, let alone decades, in the way that we've started reducing the dramaticness of the way that we show it, and it's a lot more humane and normal and real. And so I think we're seeing changes in the way that we all present Abhinaya the way that we have been over the years. I know, Shilpa, you did a Kuchipudi piece. So do you notice any differences the way that you present Abhinaya in between Kuchipudi and Bharatanatyam?
Yeah, so from my experience, Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi have a lot of similarities as far as the mudras that you use and the underlying emotion. What I would say is the main difference is probably the footwork and the pace. So you'll see that was a pretty fast-paced dance. And so I think in general, Kuchipudi, you tend to incorporate a bit more of that footwork and the rhythmic components, even as you're showing the Abhinaya. Whereas for Bharatanatyam, you tend to, other than maybe a Varnam where you combine both, you have, your padams that are a bit slower, and then you have the Nritta pieces like Varnams, for instance. So Aditya, I'm kind of curious, I just showed a powerful female character, but I'm curious about how you would show kind of a powerful male character.
Yeah, I think when you mention a powerful male character, one thing that definitely comes to mind is Lord Shiva. And so this next piece I'd like to demonstrate is a piece of Lord Shiva dancing. It is actually a Nritta piece. So it's basically a jati that is the start of a Varnam choreographed by Srimati Priyadarshini Govind. I found it very interesting because it repeats the phrase Om Namah Shivaya, and the Mridangam is playing different patterns, and it's a very intricate song. But the whole point is to show Lord Shiva is very proud of his dancing, of his abilities to play with some complex patterns, and also like his various attributes, the tiger skin around his waist, his garland of skulls, his hair, the moon on top of his hair, the Ganges flowing from his hair. And so a lot of what I'll be showing is the pride and power that you traditionally associate with as masculine attributes through Lord Shiva. So yes, this next piece is a Thirmanam choreographed by Srimati Priyadarshini Govind. And I found it very interesting, and I hope you will enjoy it.
Talangu taka diku taka tata dingna tam om. Na ma Shiva ya Shiva ya na ma Shiva ya Shiva ya na ma Om Namah Shivaya Shivaya Namah Shivaya Shivaya Namah 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 Shivaya Namah Om Namah Shivaya Hara Hara Om Namah Shivaya Shivaya Namah Om Namah Shivaya Hara Hara Om Namah Shivaya Om Namah Shivaya Tathingnatam Shivaya Namah Om Namah Shivaya Tathingnatam Shivaya Namah Om Shivaya Tathingnatam Shivaya Namah Om Namah Shivaya Tathingnatam Shivaya Namah Om Namah Shivaya Tathingnatam Shivaya Namah Om Shivaya Tathingnatam Shivaya Namah Om Namah Shivaya Tathingnatam Shivaya Namah Om Namah Shivaya Tathingnatam Shivaya Namah Om Shivaya Tathingnatam Shivaya Namah Om.
So you both have shown a male and a female perspective when it comes to Abhinaya, especially even in Nritya itself. Do you see components of both Tandavam and Lasya in the way that you move?
Sure, I can take that one first. So I think absolutely. So Aditya did a great job of showing really the male strength and communicating that. In my piece, I tried to show, like I mentioned, the female, she's still a very strong female, but still, even as you're showing the transition from, the female to turning into Durga, I think you can see all of the nuances. I would say Ardhanarisham is probably the perfect piece where you can see both of those components, right? You have the female piece where there's a little bit more graceful, and then you have the male kind of a little bit stronger perspective. Of course, all of it is in relation to the particular story that you're trying to tell. But I would say those are probably the biggest nuances I would see between the two. But
and Aditya, I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Aditya, I have a question for you too. Are the patterns in the jati influencing the way that, the Abhinaya that you're showing? Is there fluctuations in the jati that make you show fluctuations in your movement in Abhinaya?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Sorry, need to catch my breath a little bit, I guess. I would say one very interesting thing about this jati is that the patterns are very complex. And so in a traditional Trikala Tirmanam, you'd see at the beginning of Varnam, you'd have very set in stone. First speed would just be tak, dimi, very like standard, like something that would fit the dalam very well, very easily. But in this case, the beat itself is a little more complex. So if you just say Om Namah Shivaya, Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Shivaya, Namah Om. I think that itself, you could see there's combinations of all the different Panchajatis, Tishram, Chaturashram, Kandam, Sankirnam, Mishram. It's much more complex. And then as we go through the jati, even as the speed increases, the Mridangam is not necessarily following the jati itself. It'll keep changing the patterns. And so as that complexity, I think, is sort of directly associated with the fact that it's Lord Shiva presenting this. Unlike in a normal Tirmanam, it is the Nayaka or just the dancer dancing to just some audibles. This is Lord Shiva dancing, showing his pride and power, as I mentioned before. And part of it, I think, is when you're doing more complex dances, it's a time for Lord Shiva to show, his pride, his power, like, I can do these very complex things with these. Versus when I'm doing simpler things that are just takadimi or just like slower parts, I tend to like just have like a pleasant smile because it's not a time of quote unquote sort of showing off or like showing your abilities. It's just a time to like relax and continue dancing, and it's more for the music as well.
Right, and I think even the fluctuations in the voice, just the way that you say the jati, kind of, you know, I can see the difference in how you show it, where there's the difference between smiling and, you know, Shivaya, or like, you know, the Shivaya, you know, so that also, I can see the differences in that as well. So that's really cool.
Aditya, I'm also curious, you've obviously shown a male character, but I'm curious about what your take would be or your approach on showing a female character.
That's another very good question. I think, so today I wanted to demonstrate a sanchari that depicts the story of Draupadi being brought into the court and forced to remove her clothing by the Kauravas. To me, showing a female character is not inherently different from a male character. I think, or as a male dancer, showing a female character is not inherently different, because it's really about identifying core emotions that you can relate to and using those and understanding the experience of the story. So even if I don't directly relate to the story, understanding the experience of the story and using those emotions to guide me. And so it's less about a male dancer playing a female character, but me as an individual playing a female character. So yes, again, this is a piece from the Padam Tumabinamore. This sanchari is actually choreographed by Sri Shijit Nambiar. And I chose this just because there's to be able to show this story of Draupadi, which is to me, a very, very fascinating and interesting story, and also a shocking story as well. And there's a lot of different emotions to unpack within the story itself. And there's a lot of characters. And so there's an interplay between the evil characters trying to force her to come out here, as well as Draupadi herself, who has a very interesting combination of emotions. And so I hope you will enjoy this.
तुम बिन मोर कौन खबर ले भर सभा में द्रौपदी न्यारी, भर सभा में द्रौपदी न्यारी, लाखों लाज हमारी। भर सभा में द्रौपदी न्यारी, 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 लाखों लाज हमारी, लाखों लाज हमारी। कृष्णा 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 कृष्णा, भर सभा में द्रौपदी न्यारी,
That was beautiful. I think what's funny is while you're performing, I feel like, the Abhinaya is also on my face too, So it's cool because, when we're performing, we're trying to almost bring the audience to dance with us and to feel everything that we're feeling. And I think that's a very strong thing, a strong power that we hold as artists. Um, Coming from a male perspective, while you may not understand the concept of modesty and, being in such a situation, how do you think that you're able to bring these emotions out? For a woman, when we do these things, we're very familiar with, being some sort of abuse or catcalling and things like that, that us showing something like this is bringing our heart out.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think there's a fundamental question, a lot of dance, theater, acting, and everything about like depicting stories or something that you may never have personally experienced, or really it might be difficult for you to personally empathize with. And so obviously I wouldn't have personal experiences, perhaps trying to protect my modesty in such a situation. But also I feel like I would never have personal experience as one of the carvas that I depicted, like forcibly bringing her out into the court. I think the big thing is to like dissect like the core human emotions at the center of the story. And so Draupadi is simultaneously shocked at what's going on. She's angry at everyone in the court for remaining quiet. She's embarrassed and sad that she's being forced to do this. And those are all emotions that I can say I've felt and I can personally display or show. I think she shows a very interesting combination of these emotions, and then eventually surrendering to the Lord and asking Krishna to come and save her. And so these are things I can personally understand. It's about like grasping onto that versus grasping onto a story that it may not relate to. And another point I wanted to emphasize in the sanchari I just showed is the difference between the sanchari and the padartha. Of course, I'm very interested in music and how that relates to the Abhinaya we show. And so unlike the Shiva piece I just showed earlier, which is mostly a nritta piece, and it was a jati itself, this is a musical melody. This is a sanchari. And so we start with the line, Bhari Sabha Me Draupadi Nari, which basically means Draupadi was there in the court full of people, roughly translates to that. Rakho Laja Hamari. And so she's pleading to the Lord to maintain her modesty. And so initially we start with the padartha, the word-to-word meaning, going through each of the different phrases. So Bhari Sabha, in the court, Me, in that court, Draupadi Nari, Rakho Laja Hamari, showing Krishna saving her. And then we jump into the sanchari. And so sanchari is essentially elaborating on that one line to show a deeper meaning behind it. So we show the entire story. These are not necessarily things that the lyrics say, but we're just elaborating. And so the singer would kept repeating Bhari Sabha Me Draupadi Nari. And so while that was happening, I was just showing the whole scene. But then when he switches to Rakho Laja Hamari and keeps repeating that line, is when Krishna comes in, or she's pleading for Krishna to come in, and then Krishna will come in and save her. And so there's the parts of the story that relate to the lyrics are the parts that are being depicted. And I think a sanchari is very fascinating to me just because it's very much like an improvisation and a freestyle by the musicians, but there's pivotal moments where they have to show their tension, show the Abhinaya is coming, like the musicians themselves have to pay attention to the Abhinaya that's being shown. And so as a mridangist, often you'll see like for a scene like this, when Draupadi has to fall and being thrown into the court, there's a lot of tension, a lot of buildup that has to be demonstrated in the music as well as in the dance. And so there's a very fascinating combination between those two parts. So actually, turning it back a little bit, I'd like to ask you, Shilpa, what you think about or reflect on as you do Abhinaya.
Yeah, I think how you said it was absolutely spot on. I think the underlying human emotions are common across all of the stories that we're trying to tell, right? So really tapping into that. And then you also did a beautiful job of breaking down the lyrics I'd say, you know, there's so much power in the lyrics and understanding the nuances in those. And so really trying to make sure that you're fully grasping what the music is intending, as well as really, at least with Hindu mythological stories, understanding the nuances of that character. You know, there's so many characters that have so many different dimensions to them. And I think it's really a matter of, based on that music and that story you're telling, what is appropriate to show. So that's really something that I try to focus on bringing out. And hopefully, as we get a little bit farther into that chat, I'll get to also share a little bit of how that comes to life in a piece. But Megna, I would love to hear about you too on, you know, what inspires Abhinaya for you? Are there any particular stories or experiences you've had that really you try to tap into when you're doing Abhinaya?
Yeah, so just to give a bit of background about me, I am an environmentalist, a dancer, and a volunteer. So I started learning Indian classical dance at a very young age. And I was brought up very traditionally with strong roots in Hinduism and was taught all the cultural stories that you guys are showing today. And I started going through a transition in my beliefs, I think around high school. And I started to not be able to relate so closely to the stories that I was showing. And I wanted to create something that represented who I was as a person and what I found important in today's world. And so I started creating dance productions just to organize fundraisers. Started in high school for Coleman, and then it went to doing something for battered shelters and providing just basic awareness and funds for the purpose of these organizations. And I would use cultural stories that in our mythology that was relevant to what the purpose of these organizations were. So 3 years ago, I actually went to India and had the most incredible opportunity to work with women rescued from the red light districts. And the organization not only provided rescue missions, but they provide food, shelter, counseling, education, and supported, really loved these women. And so I had the opportunity to just teach spoken English. We had dance sessions, which was a beautiful way to just bring, movement is such a healing experience. And even it was adorable because I would teach them English and they would teach me Hindi. So it was such a little give and take experience with these women. And I got to watch them really heal from such a trauma and pull themselves out and build their self-esteem again. And so during this time with these children and women, I would ask them questions just about their lives. And I heard about what their lives used to be before they were trafficked, how they used to feel when they would spend time with their family and friends, the kind of memories that they would think about when they were at their worst, and all their wishes, their goals, their dreams, and everything they wanted to do with their lives and provide for their children. And the beautiful thing about our classical dance is it's a tool. It's an ability to storytell and use Abhinaya as a tool to tell stories that people are not able to share themselves. And while I include cultural stories about gods and goddesses in my productions, I've started to direct my choreography as a method of communicating something that's important to me and the stories of these women who don't necessarily have the opportunity or platform to share their stories. So I find myself also applying these teachings as a way to communicate prevalent human rights issues through Abhinaya and movements. So with the support of Ms. Anu Subramanian's beautiful poetry and working closely with Ms. Sudhara Guraman's music compositions, I had the opportunity to choose ragams, choose fluctuations, and that's kind of brings back what Aditya was saying with how powerful just choosing a ragam or a mridangam hitting in a specific way will really bring out a specific emotion. And so I was able to really to recreate these complex emotions that were communicated to me when I got to spend time with these women. So the expressions that we use in dance forms are very, very powerful, and our classical styles have an intricate vocabulary which you can maneuver the way that you would like to telling a story that you want to tell. And in the piece about human trafficking that I will present today, you see a variety of Abhinaya displayed, from pain to comfort, contentment to loss, sadness to numbness, and finally anger to bravery. And I think we've all experienced this in several different situations in our lifetime, whether we have been through such a traumatic experience or not. And I chose the ragams deliberately based off of the feelings and the types of stories that I wanted to tell at that moment. And so the nuances of the movement and expression and ragam together really bring together a powerful message. And like I said earlier, we try to not only engage the audience, but bring them into our story and make them feel like they can understand exactly what these women were feeling or how I'm feeling when I'm on stage every time. And so the piece that I will be performing today includes the stories of the several women that I had spent time with. A girl was promised a job to support her family and was captured and kidnapped into the sex industry. She experienced the trauma of being raped and is completely lost in the dark world of misery and fear. As days go on, she slowly becomes numb and starts to accept her situation as she gets ready for another day. A lot of these women who get trafficked don't even want to leave because they don't know a world outside of that. They're not educated, they're not even able to survive any other way. So they really accept their situation as it is. She feels disgust when she looks at herself in the mirror, which I think is it gets me every time, even when I show it, because just hearing this from somebody else and being able to represent themselves in that way is such an intimate moment. And while she's in this pain, she recounts these memories of when she broke her arm and how her mother used to embrace her. Because when a lot of these women, when they would try to escape, they would break limbs. And the way to deal with that pain was to really hold on to whatever memories that they had of their family, because they knew they would never be able to see them again. And as she feels her mother's embrace around her, the memory fades away and she's left with nothing but her thoughts. And I think we've all felt in our lowest moments a memory of our loved one that is not there, but their presence is. She's finally saved from the red light district, and while I'm unable to present the full version today, she gets the opportunity to learn, to educate herself, and to thrive. She experiences sunlight, fresh air, and water, the basic necessities of humans, for the first time in years. She starts to accept herself and starts working through her trauma and sees that as a part of herself rather than something that made her weak. The beautiful thing about classical dance is that it is not limiting at all. You don't necessarily have to be within these cultural zones, but you can connect to your cultural roots and create and present stories that are connected and important to you. You don't necessarily need to do monograms all the time. You can also find important things. For me, I'm an environmentalist as well. And those are components that I get to bring into small pieces that just even bring out some sort of, when I talk about nature, I'm able to bring out my own experience and my own connection to that. While stories of gods and goddesses may have been heroic to me growing up, the women that I met in India and the women that I see fighting for their children every day are my heroes now. The army that continues to join me and fight for these causes along with me, they are my heroes now. And so our classical dance forms with Abhinaya are the strongest tools. And now I get to show who these heroes are to me in these platforms. And I get to talk about people who inspire me, encourage others to volunteer beside me, and provide funds to support organizations that provide people basic human rights. I hope you enjoyed this piece and feel as inspired as I was when I created it.
stole my lights? Where are my angels weeping? I stand alone, my inner light crushed. I fear the unknown that glares at me. Who invited the god of death? Who invoked the cries of pain? Who stifled my enduring hope? Who will lead me again to light? Disillusionment, a primary characteristic, a necessary trait. He who hates mankind, order, peace, will take this world by a storm. His love of destruction will lure him to more blood. Place your future in my hands, so I may design your destiny. You have lived in a horrid hell, infested with liars and cheaters and thieves. I will safely transport you to heaven, where I will dictate your sacrifice. I will deliver you to your land of freedom, for I am your earthly savior. am not my wounds. I am not my tears. I am not my agony. I am not my scars. My wounds strengthen my mind. My tears purify my spirit. My agony buries my fears. My scars cement my courage. And this earth will birth one that has no fears.
Wow, that was very, very powerful. That was wonderful. It was very, very powerful. I just really loved all like the vivid details you added to the story. So many vivid details, in fact, that your doggo came and tried to support you as well.
I should have saw that coming. As soon as, because I don't think I've ever done this piece without actually crying. And as soon as she sees that, she's like, I need to do something.
Yeah, just seeing so many complex emotions in this piece, I'm wondering, Shilpa, I know you're very interested in like traditional storytelling, and if these complex emotions are also applicable to those.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's all about how you bring that to life. So, Megna, you did a really beautiful job of showing so many different emotions over the course of one story. I think what's powerful about that is there's also opportunity to do that even with some of our Hindu mythological stories. And it's all about the lens that we use with our storytelling. So, for instance, one story that I'm pretty fascinated by is the story of Shurpanakha, who is largely seen as this lustful villain in the Ramayana. But I think that's, a unidimensional portrayal of who she is. And so as I thought more about her character, what I found really fascinating is all the different aspects of the woman that she is, that maybe we can find a more unique way to bring that to life. So what I would love to share is a small excerpt from a Navarasa Ramayana that my mother had done for production, but I've taken the lens specifically of Shurpanakha and showing kind of her interaction with Rama and Lakshmana and all the different emotions she feels as she's going through that. So she starts out by feeling Shringaram, love towards Rama. And then she sees that Lakshmana is laughing at her as he cuts off her nose. And then she notices that they look at her with disgust because of how she looks, especially once her nose is cut off. And that turns into Raudram, or anger, where she can't believe that people are laughing at her for her appearance. And then finally, it'll go into Shantam, which is, more of peace, where she understands that, if they're going to judge her based on her appearance, then that's something that she can't help, but she's not going to take that to heart. She knows the strength of her character and she'll get what she wants. And this piece also, I think what's beautiful about it is that there's an opportunity to tell some of the kind of same themes that Megna, you're talking about around, female empowerment and what that means. I think Shurpanakha is a perfect example of that, where she kind of notices this dual standard, right? If a man is interested in a woman, it's okay for him to express that. But she, as a female, being so vocal about her interest in Ram and Lord Rama is something that she has to be humiliated for. And so really calling out that duality there. And so I'll share this piece. I'm probably going to take a slightly different take this time, staying seated so you can see a little bit more of the actual emotion. I know it's a bit harder to come across in camera, so please don't mind me staying seated for this one. I think I need to be able to share the music, Megna.
I think what's interesting on top of that, while you're sharing music, is there's a little bit of all of these characters in us. When Aditya, you were showing Draupadi, it really pulled my heartstrings, because it's very similar to what I was saying. And this trafficked woman, Shurpanakha, Draupadi, while we may not go through the same situations, it really pulls out a part of us, that we've already experienced, those feelings that we have. So I'm very excited I'm looking forward to seeing this piece.
Thanks, Megna. I think I might need sharing ability. Thank you.
क्षितिनन्दिनी विहरणे शृङ्गारं 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 क्षितिनन्दिनी क्षितिनन्दिनी विहरणे हास्यं शूर्पणखामुखे हास्यं 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 शूर्पणखामुखे हास्यं भीभत्सं भीभत्सम् अन्यामुखे भीभत्सम् रौद्रं रौद्रम् शान्तं मुनिजने पातु नः
So I hope that translated across camera, but really, again, what I was trying to show is just the complex nature of all of these different characters, whether it's in Hindu mythology or whether it's in real life stories that you're hearing every day. There's really an opportunity to show all of those nuances, and Abhinaya gives us just so many tools to be able to communicate that, and to even, of course, I would like to think I am not like Shubhanaka, but even as I am portraying her, I have, those emotions. I just feel like, okay, if I were to put myself in that place of, being humiliated by someone, how would that make me feel? And so I think that's just such an incredible gift that we've been given through Abhinaya. So what I would say is, there's a continued relevance of Hindu mythology, and that's what I've tried to show through some of my stories. And I think really how we can evolve that over time is understanding the intricacies of those stories, knowing they get passed generation to generation, finding ways to make them relevant for us in this day and age, and making sure that we're still able to communicate and connect with the audience in that way. And so, Megna, I know this is a concept that is obviously hugely important to you. So I would love to kind of just hear again about how you think about that thought process, what your connection with the audience means to you.
Absolutely. I think while dance has provided me the biggest gift in having a connection to my culture and my roots, it's also provided me a voice and a purpose in my dance, to encourage public service, to have myself, encourage myself to do public service with what I have and communicate stories about human rights issues that really strike meaning to me. And the best part is I also get to structure music and work with, collaborate with beautiful artists that help me provide the best way of telling a story. And Aditya, what's your takeaway from today?
Yeah, I have a very, I think, strong passion for how musical choices or strong interest as well in how musical choices affect and interact with the expressions shown by a dancer. And so as dancers, we're essentially translating stories or translating the music itself into visual poetry, which sounds a little pretentious, but I guess it's really true because you're trying to show it and depict this to the audience. And so the music is definitely very important. And it's also, I think, to tie back to visual poetry, it's really important to show your individuality in your expressions. And so I get asked, just as a male dancer, in a field that it's mostly dominated by female dancers, how I can show Abhinaya, show female characters, show characters that I don't necessarily like relate to directly. And I'd say it's less about being a male depicting a female character and more about being an individual depicting a female character. And so every time I try to do Abhinaya, it's just about bringing my individual thoughts and what is anger to me, what is sadness to me, what is being shocked to me as a person. And I think that's what I really love about Indian classical dance, especially, is that ability to directly look back at your emotions, your own individual experiences, and relate to stories, mythological stories, or even modern stories like Megna you depicted today, that you don't necessarily have direct correlation with, but you would like to express the ideas behind it.
Right. I love the kind of metaphor that we're carrying through today, which is the visual poetry and movement and vocabulary as a tool. It's beautiful. That's literally what it is, and it's cool that we have this opportunity to really choose and tie in all these components and bring it together. And we're so blessed to have this cultural root, because I have not seen this type of storytelling and this intricacy in other cultures the way that we were gifted with. So yeah, this has been quite a pleasure, and I want to thank everyone for being here today, and thank Shilpa and Aditya for coordinating this with me, and the three of us really learned together. We grew as artists through this experience, being able to discuss and think of questions that we don't generally get to ask when we just get on stage and perform. So this was quite an experience for us, and we appreciate you being here today. Also, please remember to like and follow the IFAA page on Facebook.
That was really, really good, really good. I think it was I see a lot of appreciative comments from all over. And first of all, thank you all for the audience for joining the Virtual Voice brought to you by Indian Fine Arts Academy of DFW. As many of you know, it's a cliche, but 2020 has changed how we can all reinvent ourselves as artists and as Rasikas. This is one of the finest examples, and another one is when I was talking with my mute on. So one of the biggest, most frequent statement that is heard in 2020 seems to be like, unmute yourself. So which is what I told myself just now. I'm very excited to see this young and talented Indian classical dance artists engaged as the depth of their knowledge and passion to enlighten us more about the aspect of gestures or Abhinaya in Indian classical dance. Here I should mention using a common phrase from business management professionals, which happens to be Shilpa's other profession, that this does not, that our panelists today have a combined performing experience of 60 years, if I'm allowed to say that. But let me remind you that this does not mean much as learning Indian classical arts is devouring an ocean of knowledge. And today is a small microcosm of what else can be discussed with the limited time. And there is a continuous learning, and the learning doesn't stop, and there's a lot more to learn. 60 years is a very, very small number compared to what you all, or what everybody in this world can accomplish in this fine arts, from Indian classical fine arts. Let me tell you that all of them are regular ardent performing artists while seeking their other professions. And of course, Aditya had to make some adjustments in his dorm room. I don't know how good it is, but he did his best. The art of gestures in Indian classical dance, as discussed today, prompted me to read the translated version of the ancient text of Abhinaya Darpana. That is, of course, freely available online. Once again, in the new light, I'm going to go back to the document and the textbook and read it again from your perspective, how you have expressed that. And that's very interesting for me. I got to learn a lot from this as well. And I do read the Abhinaya Darpana, but I mean, every time somebody talks about it, but this is a new way of exploring the gestures, the full body gestures and also facial gestures, how Shilpa has shown, and how Megna has took that to the storytelling itself, and how Aditya has shown, both the musical aspect of it and also rhythmic aspect of it, and how the complex rhythm, and also showing the gestures at the same time and how the combination works. Right? That definitely speaks a volume about all of your practicing, that you have to be in practicing for many years. That's why I threw in that word 60 years, but it doesn't really matter. Virtual Vibes features some of the performing artists and those who are trained outside India, an opportunity to many of us to learn how they understand and imbibe the arts. We have these wonderful artists who gave us insights on how they interpret their learning of the arts. This is not a platform to just perform, but a platform to interact with each other and share with us their knowledge. And so this is an opportunity for many teachers as well as to see how they can approach teaching Indian classical arts for the students outside India. It's also a learning experience for parents. There's an ocean of learning in our classical arts if they can provide the right environment for these kids. We would love to see more such dancers and musicians show their passion and inspire many more years of this to pursue the passion, right? So I have been watching all these three artists today, right from childhood when they were little, and of course Aditya even before he was dancing. But I admire how you have what you have become today. I'm a big fan of you, Megna and Shilpa, personally, and I've seen a lot of your performances, and I'm glad to see what you're doing right now. And let me also say that we're getting a lot of requests from many of our IFA followers to take part in Virtual Vibes. We're excited to bring our next Virtual Vibe session next month in May. Please stay tuned to our announcements with another set of brilliant artists. On behalf of the Indian Fine Arts Academy, I would like to wish all our patrons and ardent supporters a happy, safe, and healthy rest of the weekend. Please stay tuned to all our activities, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and become members of our vast Indian classical music and dance community of Dallas area. Thank you all for tuning in today, and look forward to all your support for Indian Fine Arts Academy and all of future events. Please do sign up for the membership of our organization as we're bringing more and more exciting news events in future. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.